In the early 2000s, a global climate crisis emerged from humankind's disregard for the Earth and its natural systems. Scientists warned of an apocalypse the likes of which could eradicate human existence. The blaming began with the leaders of many powerful nations pointing fingers at each other. Eventually, war erupted, and deadly nuclear salvos fired from the biggest superpowers ravaged much of the Earth, destroying and irradiating large portions of its surface. Certain major cities survived, and from the ashes rose again. The survivors did what they could, utilizing the resources of a few very wealthy corporations to combat the climate crisis. For almost a century, civilization has survived, hobbled together with corporate governance and expanded to the few sections of the globe still viable for sustaining human life. Antarctica, once an inhospitable frozen tundra, has become one such bastion for human life. Colonized by a Scottish arms corporation called Militech, Pilatus Antarctica is a thriving metropolis of the future. You're falling, and you're falling, and you're falling, and about feet, we're talking feet from the ground, the instruments kick back on for a split second, and then you crash. It has been 6 months since the helicopter crashed down in the streets of Pilatus. Due to the superior health coverage of Miss Silver and Mr. Purple, a trauma team vehicle was dispatched almost immediately to attempt to resuscitate the two Sahara execs. Miss Silver, still conscious due to her metallic exterior, insists that you and Abel, well, you guys both, receive the same treatment and charges it to the company card. There is no expectation to pay back that money. True to their word, the execs have extended the offer on the board to Saul, Abel, and Phoebe White. Phoebe, for her part, accepts, with the intention of finally using the research she and James did for something worthwhile. Much data has been lost by the infection of Sahara's servers, but what remains has been combed over by Phoebe and her father, who get to decide what to keep and what to scrap. Militech has received a thorough beating from the Donatis, due in part to the weapons supplied by Saul and Abel. The result is that Militech leadership is forced from Pilates, and a new provisional government is installed with an interim president being voted on by the people. Grateful for the freedom from their corporate overlords, the people cast the majority of the votes towards Evelyn Donati. For the time being, there has been no retaliation from the corporations, but many feel Militech will return to the city when they are ready for war. Sui Fangji's body was recovered among the wreckage, but strangely, her Phoenix ship contained no data for re-uploading her consciousness. Candor, confused about the disappearance of Sui Fangji, has parted ways from the remaining associates to hone her skills with Hellfire and presumably combs the net, searching tirelessly for her mentor. With all the information gathered from Sahara about Centripo, Stryker's clinic are able to bring an end to the haze epidemic and rehabilitate many people suffering from nerve damage. The explosion of Omega in the heart of the financial district destroyed much and killed at least 2,000 who had not evacuated from the attacks made by Militech. Most analysts within Sahara say that an explosion of its size and magnitude would have killed millions in Pilatus Central if it had hit its intended target. That's kind of the big boilerplate of everything that's happened. So my question I guess who wants to start?
Well, Jesse, do you have any big thoughts on what Abel has done?
Well, I don't think I would have taken any sort of extension from Sahara. I would have wanted to cut ties immediately.
You want to cut ties?
Yeah, like just take a cut of how much I earned and just take what I earned and then leave, with the assumption and with the secured promise that I would want all like evidence of me and the folks that are attached to me completely erased.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, they'll do that. They give you a tidy sum as like payment for basically putting them in the position that you've put them. You've kind of made their careers, and you kind of did away with the things that they hated about their job. And so I think that the sum that you can walk away with is in the millions of credits. Leaving Pilatus and with your tidy sum in tow, knowing that you and all of your friends will no longer be hounded by corporate interests, what do you do with the rest of your life?
I guess what I would want to go find B in Zemlin. But I don't think that's where I would want to end up and stay. I guess the big thing that I would want to do is invest in Stryker's operation and kind of be an oversight partner with him. Basically be like, I know that we're doing some good and I know what we're doing is right, but you have a shitty fucking track record, and I'm going to make sure that you continue to stay on the right track and don't spoil this for the rest of us.
So I'll ask you this: Does the Raven have anything to say?
Yeah, I think that she's going to start using the Raven to really continue drumming up anti-corporate sentiment, but also focus on like how do we get the Donatis to not just become another corporate, especially since they were already good at playing their game in the first place. The Raven would basically become a continued voice of dissent and would toe the line of encouraging people to work with the Donatis, but also to encourage people to decentralize as much as possible.
Okay. I think that I want to do one thing with this then. You are just leaving, helping out at Zemlin's clinic, and you see a figure with an umbrella, because it's raining outside, it's dark, and they approach you, and it is Popper, and they say, Abel, you're looking well. How have you been?
I'm gonna check around me and just kind of turn my body so to show that I'm not comfortable with Popper, but I'm also not gonna necessarily dart. Just be like, I was better 5 seconds ago. How are you?
I'm doing well. Relax. I have come here with kind of an offer, if you will. I'm sure you've seen some of the recent slanders at President Donati in the news recently. I'm sure, as a member of the media and the press yourself. And I was hoping that...
Yeah, I read the news.
I was hoping that you would be interested in taking up a position with her administration as a consultant, maybe an image coach, somebody to help her handle the stresses of the job and also steer her speeches and her public image.
Oh, I think she probably has some high-paid, hoity-toity folks already doing that, right? Why are you interested in me?
Well, let's just say that my associates and I are very aware of the sway that your particular voice has on the city. And we don't need to say anything more about that. We're not upset or anything. Rather, we're impressed. And I think that you are being underutilized here.
If you and your associates are so aware of the circles that I run in, then you know that we're interested in the truth and not the spin. So if our dear president continues to act in the interest of the people, you don't have to pay me a dime.
Well, would you be interested in at least writing some articles to keep corporate dogs off of our tail?
Listen, I love what you're doing here. I appreciate the candor, I guess. But I've sold my soul once. I'm not interested in putting it back on the market. I appreciate the ask, though. And unfortunately, for now, you know where to find me. So if you find something that's a little bit morally less ambiguous, that's what I'm interested in. I know where to find me for the flick.
I see. Well, I respect your decision. I just wanted to say that you are... I admire your voice and your passion, and I think that you could go places if you set your mind to it. I've been in the position that you've been of hating the hierarchy and hating the game, but finding the right people to play with, at least for me, was worth it. And they extend their hand out to shake yours.
I'll shake it. And I'll just say, you know, Popper, I think you're right about that. And then, but after that conversation, I mean, if nothing, does anything happen with that conversation?
I mean, it ends, I think. I mean, you turn down their offer, politely. They don't have a problem with what you're doing as far as the side job. But so, that it can end there if that's what you want for Abel.
Yeah, well, I think what Abel's going to do after that conversation is just start sourcing folks from her work with Stryker and her just general beat around town and start recruiting other people to act as the Raven. And start decentralizing her role because she does not like that people know who she is. So she's going to start basically building her flock. And
the flock of ravens.
The flock of ravens. So yeah, just basically showing them all the flock of birds.
Cool.
Would it be the murder? Or what's the one for ravens?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a murder of crows.
All right. That is cool. Any closing thoughts, statements that Abel wants to get across?
You can cut this out, but I just found out a group of ravens is called the Unkindness.
Perfect.
Or a conspiracy. I think that might be cooler.
Either one works. An unkind conspiracy. No, I do think that within the next 2 years, though, Abel is going to either gently... She's going to find... She wants to disappear in some way. So whether she does that by getting a terminal illness and slowly fading, or from faking her death in some way, and so she's going to erase herself from the map in some way. So I think she may end up going and finding that one, the fixer. What was her name? Possibly do a couple odd jobs for her, but with the plan of completely being set up either with a new identity, and she wants to just fade back and let the swap do its work.
So, moving on to Saul, or is it Saul now? That's my first question, is have you kind of decided who it is that you are?
I think after all the experiences that have happened and everything that goes on after the crash, 6 months after, Saul stays Saul, because I think he takes on the middle name James, though, because there's moments of coherency where he is 100% Saul, and then there's moments of, I'd say coherency as well, where he knows he's not James anymore, but he has the memories and the overlay and everything else of James, and he just knows things that James knew. But after the crash, a couple things that are important is that he lost one of his legs in the crash, and he got it replaced with something mechanical, essentially. It could be more automated towards an actual human physiology, so it looks more like filigree and kind of human-esque, or it could be something that's more along the lines of multiple legs put together, kind of like a spider leg situation, but intermesh, so where there might be 3 or 4 just to give him extra stability, something of the sort. But he has been kind of trying to process becoming the person he once was while also being the person he is now, I guess, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I think he started very reluctantly dating Phoebe again. Because Phoebe has, I'm sure, a lot of emotions and stuff tied to the past, and Saul doesn't 100% understand or comprehend all of them, I guess. So he's...
Yeah, it's like trying to catch a moving train.
Yeah. So he's trying to, or I don't know, it's very much used to play chess or piano or something a long time ago, 20 years ago, whatever. You try to take it back up as you're older, and you still know how to play some of the keys, but you don't remember everything you used to, I guess, is the best way I could describe it. Yeah. That's how he kind of feels for their relationship. But he has gone back to work for Sahara with Phoebe, and he helps when he can with their research, but he still doesn't have a great recognition of it. So instead, he has fostered his manufacturing talents towards creating robotics instead. And actually, he tries to have a very close relationship with Candor in two very important kind of aspects. One, to try to get her to stay with Sahara and have all the resources that she can to become a better just net runner. And then two, Saul thinks he saw something during the crash, and being resuscitated during the crash. He thought he saw something that just makes him think that like aliens are definitely out there and they took soy fungi.
Oh,
so
interesting.
He is it could have been like a white flash or like an orb or something as the helicopter crashed, but he is with Candor on the down low. Like every other night, he is working on building a robotic body so that when they find soy fungi's consciousness, they A, are able to put soy fungi's consciousness back into this robotic body, and or B, try to steal whatever technology they can from aliens.
Interesting.
Saul's
yeah, I think most of your interactions with Candor now happen through text.
Yeah,
because she is, like I said, kind of distanced herself from the city, from her life here. Because I think to Candor's mind, Pilatus is the city where she grew up, but she didn't really get to have, a traditional childhood or family or anything like that. And so there's a lot of questions about her that she hasn't answered yet. And so you kind of give her space and just check in on her once in a while, let her know how the project's doing. And sometimes she responds to you and sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes she leaves you unread. But it's heartening to know that she's at least, she's out there somewhere. And she hasn't given up. She's, constantly working on her net running skills, utilizing Hellfire to try to find Su Fengji. It's kind of become her singular focus. But for you, Saul, I also wanted to ask more having to do with like your sort of being.
Mm-hmm.
There, I think, with like recalling your life as James, occasionally you have dreams still that don't seem to fit your life or James's life. And they kind of haunt you. And Phoebe, I think, offers for you to see somebody, a professional. Do you take her up on that?
I think after some hemming and hawing, Saul definitely will do so, because like he still thinks of like the times in which he met, like the first time in his memory, which is like that dream sequence in which he met Phoebe when Phoebe was a kid. And that still doesn't sit right with him or any of the memories that he recollects from James. Because after, spending some time with her and learning about who James was in the past, asking her like, when did you guys meet? Like both James and Phoebe met very much when they were adults. Right. So the fact that like he had this shared moment, especially when Phoebe was in an incorporeal form too, talking about how they met when they were kids in a ship or in a facility of some sort, really throws him for a loop. And just like the fact that he's always had this feeling that, things are out there that are beyond his control. He'll go and get like do the hypnosis or whatever she recommends. Okay,
so I think you're in one of these meetings, and the psychologist has just kind of finished up getting set up for this kind of deep dive. They're able to utilize kind of like VR technology from like the VR castles to incorporate it for like a healing purpose. And the the lady says, okay, so just like last time, we're going to take a dive back into your life as James, and I want you to pay close attention to your dreams. And something in your head, I've looked at the test, the results a number of times. There's just something in there. There's a block that I can't access in your psyche. And I think that if we're able to open the door like we have talked about, it will come flooding back to you who you are. Not to say that who you are today is not a complete person. We're happy with everyone that, has talked to me about you, has always told me how much they care for you as you are. So we're not trying to complete you. Just answer some of the questions that you have.
No, like
about where you came from.
Oh yeah, I like totally get it, Doc, and I appreciate all like the kind words, but I want to jimmy that lock in my skull too. I want to know something. All right, let's do it. I gotta hit a button, or do you gotta kick me in the head again?
You're very funny. No, we're going to just recede like we always have. And I want you to just sit through this and kind of just be a passive observer into the life of James. And so you do, and you get into this dream sequence, or this VR rather. And you're James as a young man, and like you've just explained before, or witnessed before, rather, this is the earliest memory you're able to access. You're about 17, and you're stepping out of some sort of like pod. There's lots of lights, and it's hard to tell where you are, and it's very disorienting. And the memory always ends with you kind of hyperventilating and passing out. And just before you do, you see a like laying on a slab, like an older man, graying hair, wispy beard, and he's not moving, and you're always worried about him. Is he okay? And then you wake up, and you're in a bed you assume is yours, and you go about getting up and getting ready for work.
Okay, so yeah, there's that old guy that we're always worried about again, Doc. I'm seeing him again, and I don't know what it means.
Do you recognize his face?
Is it any clearer than it's been in the past?
He's still got same old kind of like oldish dude. I can't tell if he's like, I think he maybe in his 50s or 60s. He's got a long wispy beard. He doesn't look like unhealthy. He looks like fit for his age, I guess, but I don't think he's breathing.
Sometimes we put mental blocks over particularly traumatic events, and I think, I'm not calling you a liar, I think that you do know this man somehow, and my professional inclination is to assume that he's somebody that you care about, which explains why you're always worried about him, and if he's okay. And so we can go through the pictures again if you'd like.
Let's try it one more time. Let's try to do it slower.
Okay. Phoebe provided these, of course. This is your father. Does he look familiar to you?
Yeah, but I mean, my dad was like in his 40s when Mom and Pa got, blown up in that car thing, this guy looked way older. He looked bigger, too. Like, just older. Stronger, maybe.
Okay. Sure. Well, we'll continue on. This is your uncle, Ryan. Is this ringing any bells for you?
A little bit more. I mean, maybe this guy could be my dad or Ryan, 20 years later. Like, this guy might be my grandfather, maybe, but even then, my dad and uncle were like twins, right? So that's why they look the same, but why would my grandpa look like identical to them too?
Okay, well, you mentioning your grandfather, here he is. Now, Phoebe couldn't find a picture of him with a beard, so you'll have to imagine it, of course. Does he seem familiar to you?
He's familiar, I think, but even then there's something different about this guy. Like, the guy Saul starts to like rub his head with obviously the VR thing on his face, and he's thinking really hard, and just like something in his brain says just the first, and he's like, I don't know, I'm just thinking that like that guy's the first, and I don't know what that means.
That's interesting. That's the first time you've used that term, and she scribbles it down in her notepad. I think that we've done enough for this session. I would suggest go home, get some rest, ponder this, what the first might mean to you. You're welcome to take the pictures, of course. Any opportunities to jog your memory, I would suggest you take them.
Yeah, I'll do that. That's all. We'll grab a hold of the pictures and just kind of like shake the doc's hand and get going for the night, I guess. And he will definitely stop at a penguin taco and pick one up for old time's sake.
Sure. Do you grab one for Phoebe as well?
Well, he'll get 3. He'll get one for the road, one for Phoebe, and one for himself.
Okay. Gotta have enough penguin tacos for the road.
If you're not serving to depopulate the penguin population in Antarctica, what the fuck are you doing on this planet? And yes,
generally speaking, I don't know.
I know they're all synthetic or whatever, but the fact that you're killing, what is it, Antarctic pigeons is whatever. So I was just gonna keep rolling.
Okay. So I think that as far as you make a good, you've made a good leap towards the truth, but a lot of people spend a lifetime searching for things and never get any answers. Do you think that Saul will ever discover the truth?
I think Saul will, if he discovers any form of the truth about some form of like cloning or anything like that, it's going to be in the fact that he stumbles into it and then immediately thinks that like it's somehow tied to aliens again, and that will just further drive his unending like need to work on robotics. And while he does, like I said, he works to better the robotics of just Sahara, and also do more everything that like Phoebe and Dr. White are doing in more of a philanthropic and also better for society way. He is also going to have that like soy fungi body that created machine robot somewhere in his lab. Maybe not necessarily like hidden, but definitely locked away so that no one else can access it in such a way, like maybe biometrics, maybe anything like that. But he will work on that machine until he dies.
And I think you're about 60 years old, and all of a sudden your health has just started to decline. The doctors are somewhat stumped. You're a pretty healthy, or you've lived a pretty healthy life, and avoided all the things that you're told to avoid. But just one by one, all of your organs start to go into a decline. And there is a thought in your head, a singular thought, that you might be able to preserve yourself if you can transfer your consciousness to the android in your workshop. Do you ignore the voice or do you listen to it?
I'm going to roll a dice. And see. Alright, we'll go with a D10. I think on an even number, he will ignore it because he'll want to die with Phoebe. On an odd number, he will go... Before he dies necessarily with Phoebe, he will transfer his consciousness over to the robot, but that's if I get an odd number. And I got a 5. So I think what he will do is he will explain the process to Phoebe, and he'll say he'll want to transfer not his entire consciousness, but if he can, a part of James and Saul that's more like technologically inclined, so that he'll tell Phoebe it's for the betterment of, to continue the work going on after he dies as like an AI, but also it's for that small sliver in his mind that says you need to, preserve Saul, James. You need to preserve that your essence.
Okay. So I think we should leave this up to a dice roll as well. So odds and evens.
Mm-hmm.
On an even... Well, I'll okay. Just roll.
Okay. D10. I got a 3.
3. So you get through this process. You begin the data transfer, and at the last second, you kind of notice a little red light, an alarm light beeping on the far side of the table, and then your eyes open. You wake up, and you see a nice older woman. Fair features, if she is, maybe 65 years old, and just the most, amazing golden hazel eyes you've ever seen in your life. And she seems friendly, but you don't know who she is.